I'm really glad I waited a day or two before making this video, because I was about to launch into a rant about how GW had done it again, shortchanging us with a 3-episode series after piquing our interest. Fortunately, they must have realised that there were going to be a lot of unhappy punters about, because they had an article ready to go explaining that Interrogator was now 3 acts of 3 episodes each, and the next act will be in June, so there's not a long wait. When I initially saw that it was 3 episodes, I thought there would be a long wait before we got the next one, so this is a lot better. It is amazing what good communication and forethought can do. It wasn't all good though, because they did mention that the whole runtime of Interrogator would be well over 100 minutes, so I'm assuming that's anywhere from 100 to 120 minutes, and even then that's not very long at all. So they could have done better on that front. I'm going to review it later on, so if you want to hear what I thought of episode 3 of Interrogator, stick around. Maybe even like and subscribe. Only having 3 episodes got me thinking about the Exodite, and I was wondering where the deep strike is for that. I'd really love to hear the panel's thoughts on it, and I truly mean that. Although it wasn't my favourite series ever, I didn't actually like it very much, I'd really like to hear what their take on all the cracking set pieces are, because some of the 40k set pieces were absolutely amazing. So I'd love to hear what Chris Peach and Adam Troke and all that thought of it. Anyway, since I took last week off for my birthday, and I know you didn't ask, but I was 43, and I don't look or feel a day over 60. So I've got 2 weeks worth of stuff to review. Lucky you. Over the last 2 weeks we've essentially had what we will eventually be getting in a week, and I have to say it's enough. It feels like a substantial amount of content for 1 week. Last week's Warhammer Vault featured Firestorm, an AOS campaign book, and it's the usual fare, great photography, got a lot of pictures of old models in there. Not my favourite, I wouldn't say you have to go and read it or anything, but it's there. The White Dwarves are from April and May 2010, and one of them's about War of the Ring, and the other one features one of the best big releases ever in a White Dwarf in my opinion, and that was Blood Angels. We've got those beautiful Death Company models, we've got the Sanguinary Guard, we've got a plastic Bal Predator. If you know the pain of having a plastic model with metal turrets and sponsons on it, then you would really appreciate a plastic Bal Predator. There were also 4 characters. There was the Sanguinor, Lamartes, Asterath, and Gabriel Seth from the Flesh Tearers, I think it was, with his big 2-handed chainsword. Fantastic models, and this was all in 1 month. I know back then they didn't release stuff every week, but this was still a colossal release. The book for this week was the Horus Heresy Model Masterclass, and it is a cracker. This is a book that I would have quite happily bought full price if it was a digital release, so for me personally it's amazing that we get this in Warhammer Vault. It's got painting guides for knights, tanks, Primarchs as well. It's got a guide for Ferrus Manus, and it shows how he's got half metal arms and how you paint the metallic parts and the skin parts and how you get them to blend together. That's really cool. It's also got guides for terrain, and it's really weird seeing airbrushing tips in a Games Workshop publication. I know this is a Forge World book, but it's still very strange. This one's also really well timed because there's all the Horus Heresy hype at the moment, just like the Imperial Knight one was a few weeks ago. So they've really got their act together. Warhammer Vault is great. The White Dwarfs for this week were about Beastmen and 40k battle missions. Loremasters this week was about Marathi, obviously to tie in with the Daughters of Cain releases that are coming up. And there's a new presenter, his name's Alex Doddy. He's an actor. He's done about 25 audiobooks reading, so he's got a really good audiobook voice. He was also in a Star Wars fan film called Dark Reckoning. I thought his delivery was great. He was very engaging, and I really enjoyed watching him. This is nothing against Wade Price, I enjoy his as well, but it's good to have another presenter on board. I think this is part of the strategy as well, to churn out more content, so they'll be able to film 2 things at once. For me, Alex is a great presenter, and whichever way you slice it, Games Workshop have hired a professional actor to deliver content for Warhammer Plus, so that can only be a good thing for Warhammer Plus in the future, and it does show a level of investment in this service. Battle report for last week was Nighthaunt v Daughters of Cain, and I don't really know what I was watching. I enjoyed it anyway. The scenery was incredible. There was a big mausoleum thing. It looked fantastic. It would be a joy to play over. The usual banter back and forth between the presenters. And sometimes I quite enjoy watching a battle report if I don't quite know what's going on, because it's a shock when there's like a big roll or loads of people get killed at once. So yeah, just battle report, still good. It was a bit of a disappointment that they announced the Nighthaunt guy on the boat on Sunday, but we didn't see him in the battle report. It would have been good to see him in action. It's a bit of a weird model to have on the table, but I would have loved to have seen it. This week's Masterclass had me thoroughly confused. It was all about painting verdigris on a Chaos Knight's shoulder pad, which is all well and good, but just about at the same time, Duncan Rhodes posted on Instagram that he was doing a tutorial about verdigris on a Chaos Knight shoulder pad. Exactly the same shoulder pad, and it looked the same. I don't know which one came first, I don't know the sequence of events, but I am thoroughly bamboozled. I do feel like the Masterclass tutorial was a bit like drawing an owl. The paint was applied streakily, and then Aidan Daly said, be sure not to leave streaks, and then all of a sudden, the next picture was the dried shoulder pad with no streaks in sight. Sure thing, Aidan, we watch these tutorials because we're already master painters and we know how to get rid of streaks when we've plastered paint onto it, so thanks for that. That was sarcasm if you couldn't tell, by the way. It did seem like there were a few details missing, so maybe Duncan's tutorial will be a bit more friendly. Spoon feed us, come on! Act 1 of Interrogator came to a close with Episode 3, Someone Else's Nightmare. For me it wasn't a satisfying place to leave it, but it did leave me wanting more, so it did its job. Albeit not with the same level of interest that I had after watching Episode 1. I had higher hopes after Episode 1 than I do after Episode 3, so it's kind of on a wee bit of a slide for me. Not much, but a wee bit. It maintained the brutality from the first couple of episodes, but the bad guys did suddenly go from shooting moving targets with precision at long distances to emptying a full clip at the protagonist and missing every single shot. So that was a bit cheesy. This also does need a stark warning. It is pretty shocking in parts. I personally don't mind it, but it is definitely at a more extreme end when it comes to action. There must be a rule somewhere that when someone gets hit in the head, their eyeball is the only thing that survives. So this episode covered how Jurgen got acquainted with Inquisitor Belina in the first place, and it's not what I expected at all. I did really enjoy that part of it, but other than seeing the seedy underbelly of a Warhammer 40k city, there wasn't that much else to get excited about in this episode. It's very atmospheric, which is an achievement given the limited animation, but hearing Jurgen utter the words "it never is" after every single line just gets a bit tiresome in the end. For this being one full act out of 3, I don't feel that Jurgen and Balder have accomplished much at all yet. It's quite slow. I'm hoping that the next episode hits the ground running, and this is more just a getting to know you kind of thing. If you're looking for something else to watch, I'd recommend this one. Happy hobbying. Cheers.